did you know that Italy utilizes over 350 different wine grapes? And one region I'd really like to help get you acquainted with is Sicily. This beautiful island located at the toe of the boot is producing some fantastic lesser known wines. And even if we can't pronounce the names of them, we can still drink them. Now there's an added intrigue to the wines of Sicily because this island is still an active volcano. And for those of you who've been with me for prior videos, we talked about how the soil affects the way grapes grow and the way wines taste. Experts have weighed in on this extensively. The wines of Sicily really taste different because of that volcanic soil. Because of its position in the Mediterranean, Sicily has been a cultural hub for millennia. At different times, the island has been inhabited and controlled by Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Muslims, and even the Spanish. And that's not even all of them. It's likely that the Greeks were the ones who brought wine and grapes to Sicily, probably around the 8th century BC. So they've been making wine here for a long time. The climate in Sicily is pretty hot, almost too hot for growing grapes and making wines. In fact, Sicily was long known for its wheat production, but over time, winemakers finally figured out that they could grow grapes around the cooler coastal regions and also the higher elevations of Mount Etna. And to this day, these are still the main winemaking regions in Sicily. Mount Etna is presently the tallest active volcano in Europe. It's almost constantly active and has erupted as many as 16 times in 1 year. So the soils of Sicily are ever changing, and these soils have a direct effect on the wines that are being made here. They're very unique, so what is it that makes them that way? First, through hundreds of years of adaptation, mostly local indigenous varieties of grapes seem to thrive around these volcanic regions, which is definitely what we have here. Next, volcanic soils are rich in minerals that usually come from deep within the earth, and grapevines love minerals. And lastly, volcanic soils tend to be more pH neutral, which is great for growing grapevines. So all of these qualities add up to what we call a terroir that creates grapevines and also wines that are usually very fragrant, bright, and acidic. And these qualities in these wines are pretty consistent across the board when you're looking at places that have volcanic soils. It's not just imagined, it's real. One more thing that we should probably discuss, and that's that these wines are all organic. So what does it mean when a wine is organic? For a wine to be organic, they can't use chemicals or pesticides in the vineyard or on the grapes. There are little to no added sulfites, and they rely on indigenous yeasts that are present in the region to do the fermentation. All right, so while I'm over here making more noise than an active volcano, I can tell you're probably getting thirsty, so I'm not going to make you wait any longer. Let's taste these wines. And as always, I created a little learning aid here for you. This is a mat that you can download from the link below the video if you want to taste along with me. All three wines in our pack today are from Baglio De Pianetto. They've been making wine in Sicily for about 24 years now. They sourced the grapes for these wines from two locations in Sicily, in the far north near Palermo, and then in the far south in an area known as Noto. They're producing mostly organic wines, and they're moving towards 100% sustainable production. The main vineyard sits on a plateau in the foothills to the north at about 2,100 feet above sea level. And coincidentally, Pianetto is the Italian word for a little table or a shelf. So let's check out this 2019 Ancelia from Balio De Pinepto. This is made from 100% Ancelia, which is a native Sicilian grape. And these come from the Pianetto estate, which is in the north near Palermo. Coincidentally, Ancelia is one of the two grapes that is used in the making of Marsala wine. So let's give that wine a little swirl. The first thing that leaps out of the glass for me is sort of like a lime peel aspect, and there's a lot of green apple in here as well. It's floral. I'm getting some white flowers or jasmine, and an interesting toasty note that comes from a winemaking technique called sur-lie aging. And that's where the winemaker actually lets the wine rest on the yeast after fermentation is over. Very high in acids. So my mouth is watering right now, which is a natural response to acids in a wine. Then of course it's very intense as far as the flavors are concerned. We have that lime peel coming through, some of that jasmine or white flower, the green apples, and of course that toastiness from the sur-lie aging. So it's interesting, even with this first wine, we're already starting to see some of those qualities and those aspects from a volcanic soil wine. So that there is a beautiful entry point into the world of Sicilian wines. Let's check out this 2018 Frappato Frappato is another native Sicilian grape, obviously red, and it makes for a really light and bright red wine. So the grapes to make this wine are sourced from a second vineyard location down in the south of Sicily, known as the Baroni Vineyard. And this vineyard is at a lower elevation above sea level, about 150 feet above sea level, so it's going to be a warmer site. Both of these wines from Sicily so far, really super aromatic and fragrant in the glass. In this case, I'm getting more sort of like a rose essence or like an African violet essence. It really just hits you with strong flavors of cherry. There's roses, there's African violets in there, and there's a minor funk on this wine, which I can't determine if it comes from the volcanic soil or the indigenous yeasts that they use to ferment the wines. Now that we've had the opportunity to taste two wines, both from Sicily, I think we're starting to form a picture here. Nairo De Avila is one of the most famous grapes from the south of Italy and considered to be one of the flagship grapes coming from Sicily. So it'll be really interesting to taste this 2018 here. This wine also comes from their Baroni estate, which is located in the south of the country, and I expect this to be a little bit more juicy and a little bit more high in alcohol. And you can see this is already slightly darker than the prior red wine. Nero in Italian actually means black. And the theme continues. The first two wines were really strong and aromatic, and so is this one, but in a different way. The first two were floral. This one is funky. Funky in a sort of like sea salt, ocean briny sort of way. It's a lot more tannic, first of all, but secondly, the red fruit characters in this are quite different. I'm getting more cranberry and also pomegranates. We're talking about an organic winemaker here, so they're sort of stepping back out of the process and letting the grapes' natural beauty shine through. So what we're seeing here is more tannin, and also that funkiness that's coming through is coming from wild yeast fermentation. Really some interesting flavors going on here, and I hope this sort of demonstrates to you that there can be some differences when wines are grown in volcanic soils. As is always the case when you have wines that are nice and fresh like this, they go great with so many different dishes. You're going to get some recipes along with this weekly tasting, so let's talk about those. The shrimp pesto pasta is going to be a great partner for our Ancelia wine. This light, sharp, and fresh white wine is going to make that pesto really jump out of the dish, and also the smokiness from the sur-lie aging is going to bond nicely with the savoriness that comes from the pine nuts. And then we have a creamy salmon with spinach and artichoke dish. And I think there's going to be some green flavors in this dish thanks to the spinach and also the artichoke too. We're going to need a wine with a little bit of tannin in it to stand up to the task. And I think that would be our Frappatto. And lastly, we have a gorgonzola garlic bread. And the main reason for choosing this dish was because of the funkiness in the gorgonzola cheese. That's going to pair right up with that funkiness that we have in our Nairo De Avila. All right, my friends, so now that you've had the opportunity to taste three wines from Sicily and think about them in terms of volcanic soil, I put the question to you: can you taste the volcano? Let me know what you thought and what your experiences with these wines are in the comments section below this video. I will get back to you. On behalf of Wine Still Sold Out, I'm Marc Supsic. Thank you so much for joining me for this weekly tasting, and I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.